The church was filled with soft music and the faint scent of lilies as Mia stood at the back of the aisle, her white gown flowing like mist around her feet. Her hands trembled around her bouquet, not because of nerves, but because something inside her refused to calm down. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. After years of heartbreak, she was finally marrying Ethan, a man who had shown her love, patience, and peace. Everyone said she deserved this happiness, but even before the ceremony began, a strange feeling settled in her chest, like a whisper that something wasn't right. Her mother, Grace, was walking toward her, her face lit with a wide, cheerful smile. But it wasn't the kind of smile that brought comfort. It was the kind that hid something beneath. Mia tried to shake off the unease and smiled back, pretending not to notice the tension forming in her chest. Grace leaned in close, her perfume heavy in the air, and whispered words that froze the world around Mia. "We're giving back the car his parents gifted you." Mia blinked, unsure she'd heard correctly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Grace stepped back with that same smile, adjusting Mia's veil as if she hadn't just shattered her peace. The car, that car. The silver one sitting in her parents' garage, covered with a sheet. The car that had once symbolized love, then betrayal. The car that Daniel's parents had gifted her years ago when she was engaged to their son. The same Daniel who broke her heart in the cruelest way possible. Mia's throat went dry. "What did you say?" she whispered, barely holding her voice steady. Grace smoothed her dress calmly. "Daniel's parents sent a message this morning. They thought returning the car would be a nice gesture. You know, for closure." She said the word closure with a soft tone, as if it was a kind favor. Mia's heart pounded in her ears. Closure? That word didn't belong here. Not today. Not when she was finally trying to start over. "Why would you even talk to them?" she asked, trying to keep her voice from trembling. Grace sighed, the kind of sigh mothers gave when they thought their daughters were being dramatic. "Oh, Mia," they reached out politely. "I thought it would be rude to refuse. Besides, it's just a car. We're only returning what doesn't belong to us anymore." Mia wanted to scream that it wasn't about the car. It was about what it represented. Humiliation, heartbreak, and the night Daniel had crushed her completely. He had ended everything 1 week before their wedding. She remembered that moment as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. Daniel standing in her parents' living room, his face cold and distant, saying, "You were never the one. Mia, my parents don't think you're right for me." He'd walked away without hesitation, leaving her surrounded by flowers and invitations she had to cancel herself. Now, years later, her mother's words tore open that same wound. As she looked around the room filled with flowers, music, and smiling guests, she suddenly felt dizzy. She turned her head slightly, scanning the hall, and her breath caught in her throat. Sitting in the last row, half hidden behind a pillar, was Daniel. Her pulse raced. He was there, wearing a dark suit, his posture relaxed, as if he belonged. His eyes met hers, and a faint smirk tugged at his lips. That smirk, the same one he used to wear when he knew he had control. Her entire body went cold. Why was he here? Who invited him? Her mind started spinning. Maybe his parents had used the car as an excuse to be part of her wedding day, a cruel way to remind her of what she once had and lost. Maybe Daniel wanted her to see him, to know that no matter how far she thought she'd come, she'd never really escaped him. Grace touched her arm lightly. "Are you all right, dear?" "You look pale." Mia forced a smile, her lips stiff. "I'm fine, Mom." But she wasn't. Every heartbeat felt like thunder in her ears. Her hands shook as she adjusted her veil again. She couldn't believe her mother had let this happen, that she had allowed Daniel's family to interfere in her new life, on her wedding day. The ceremony began. The music swelled. Ethan stood at the altar, waiting with the same gentle smile that had once made her believe in love again. His eyes found hers, and for a moment, she felt the warmth of his presence steady her. She took a deep breath and began to walk down the aisle. Step by step, she forced herself to forget Daniel, to focus on Ethan, on the life they were about to begin. But her gaze kept drifting toward the back, toward the man who had once destroyed her. Daniel sat there, his expression unreadable now. Was he enjoying this? Did he come to see if she would crumble? As she reached Ethan, he took her hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." She tried to smile, tried to be present. But her mind was miles away. Every word from the officiant blurred into a hum. Her mother's words, Daniel's face, they tangled inside her head like vines she couldn't escape. After the vows, the crowd applauded. The music returned. Mia managed to smile for photos, to laugh when people congratulated her. But inside, she was somewhere else, back in the past, replaying every word Daniel had said when he broke her. "You're not good enough. My parents think you're beneath me." When the reception started, she found her mother near the dessert table. "Why did you do it?" she asked quietly. Grace looked surprised. "Do what?" "Return that car." "You knew what it meant to me." Grace frowned slightly. "Mia, it's just a material thing. I thought it would be healthy to let go. It's time to move on." Mia bit back a bitter laugh. "By bringing him here, by letting his family remind me of everything I lost?" Her mother's eyes widened. "He's here?" Mia turned toward the crowd, scanning. But Daniel was gone. The seat where he sat was empty. Her heart pounded harder. Had she imagined him? No, she knew what she saw. He had been there. For the rest of the evening, she couldn't stop glancing at the doors, half expecting him to walk in again. Every sound made her jump. Every conversation felt distant. It was as if the entire event had been cursed the moment her mother spoke those words. Later, when the guests began to leave and the hall grew quiet, Mia sat alone near the window, looking out at the night sky. The silver car flashed in her mind, the way Daniel had given it to her, smiling as he dropped the keys into her hand, saying, "For our future." The same car that had sat untouched since he left. She had begged her parents not to sell it, not to touch it, because part of her hadn't been ready to face what it represented. But now her mother had given it back, and somehow that felt like the final humiliation. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen. "Congratulations, Mia. The car was never yours to keep." It was from an unknown number, but she didn't need to guess who it was. Her hands clenched around the phone, her pulse roaring. The anger she thought she had buried rose like fire in her chest. He hadn't come to wish her well. He had come to mock her, to remind her that he still had the power to hurt her, even now. As she stared at the message, something inside her shifted. The years of sadness, of being the girl who was left behind, began to harden into something else. She wasn't the same broken woman Daniel had abandoned. She was stronger now. And if he wanted to play games, she could play better. Outside, the lights of the city shimmered in the distance. The soft sound of rain began to fall, tapping against the window. Mia wiped a tear from her cheek, not out of sorrow, but out of anger. Daniel had chosen this moment to humiliate her again, on her wedding day. But he had forgotten one thing. She wasn't the girl who cried anymore. She looked down at her wedding ring, then at the message again. Her expression hardened. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered to herself. And as the night went on, Mia made a silent promise that this time she would end things on her terms. No tears, no begging, no broken heart, only justice. Because if Daniel wanted a reminder of who she used to be, she would give him one. But it wouldn't be the weak woman he once left behind. It would be someone far more dangerous, someone he would never see coming. Mia sat alone in her dressing room after the wedding, the laughter and chatter outside fading into a distant echo. Her gown lay heavy on her shoulders, the makeup on her face starting to smudge, but she didn't care. All she could think about was that message. The car was never yours to keep. The words replayed in her mind like a haunting melody. Daniel's voice, his smirk at the ceremony, the way he had appeared just to disappear again. It all stirred something sharp and bitter inside her. Her perfect day had turned into a cruel reminder of her past. Ethan knocked softly before entering. His kind eyes studied her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." He nodded gently, trusting her words because Ethan always trusted her. He kissed her forehead and stepped out to join the guests again. The moment he left, her smile vanished. She turned to the mirror, staring at her reflection. The same woman Daniel once called not good enough. Her heart clenched. She had built a whole new life to escape that voice. But somehow, he had found a way to reach her again. That night, when everyone left and the lights dimmed, she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned beside Ethan, pretending to rest, but her mind raced. She thought about the car, that silent ghost sitting in her parents' garage, the last piece of Daniel still tied to her name. Her mother had given it back, but what did that mean? Did Daniel now have control over it again? Did he do it just to humiliate her? To remind her he still had power? The next morning, Mia drove to her parents' house. Her mother greeted her cheerfully as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, dear. You should be on your honeymoon. I just needed to check something," Mia said quickly. She walked straight to the garage. The car was gone. The space where it once stood was empty except for a faint tire mark on the floor. Her chest tightened. "Where is it?" she asked sharply. Grace hesitated. "Daniel's father sent someone to collect it yesterday evening. I thought you knew." Mia turned to her mother, disbelief flashing in her eyes. "You let them take it? Without asking me?" Grace sighed. "Mia, it was their car to begin with. I didn't think it mattered." Mia felt a surge of anger rise within her. "It does matter," she said, her voice trembling. She stormed out before her mother could reply, her mind spinning. Daniel had taken back what once symbolized their future together, as if reclaiming ownership over her life again. By the time she reached home, Mia's anger had turned into determination. She refused to let him have the last word. He had humiliated her once, but this time she wouldn't be the one left broken. She wanted to end this story differently, with her in control. Over the next few days, she began digging. She called a friend who worked in real estate and asked discreet questions about Daniel's family business. His parents owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, but rumors said things weren't going well. There were whispers about debt, about Daniel trying to fix things behind the scenes. The more Mia learned, the more she realized how vulnerable he might actually be. For years, she had believed Daniel was untouchable, wealthy, powerful, secure. But now, for the first time, she saw cracks forming in that perfect image. The car wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a weapon. It had value, history, and most importantly, it was still legally connected to her name through the original ownership papers. His father may have taken it physically, but on paper it was still hers. That's when the idea came to her. Quiet, precise, and devastating. She would not confront him directly. She wouldn't scream or beg or demand apologies. She would do something far more permanent. Mia called her lawyer, an old college friend named Clara, and explained the situation. Clara was cautious but intrigued. "Technically," she said, flipping through old records, "if the ownership transfer was never completed, you still hold rights to the vehicle. Can we transfer it?" Mia asked. "To whom?" Clara raised an eyebrow. Mia smiled faintly. "To someone who deserves it." She spent the next few hours researching charities. One caught her eye, a women's rehabilitation center that helped survivors of emotional and financial abuse rebuild their lives. It felt right. It felt poetic. She called Clara again. "I want to donate the car in Daniel's name," she said calmly. The process moved quickly. Within a week, the paperwork was complete. The car, once a symbol of her humiliation, now stood parked outside the charity's office, shining under the sunlight. A photo was taken. The car with a plaque that read, "Donated by Daniel Price in support of women's empowerment." Mia looked at it and felt something shift inside her. Not joy, but justice. 2 days later, the news broke online. A headline appeared on a local business blog. "Daniel Price donates luxury car to women's charity." The article praised his generosity, calling him an example of compassion and change. Daniel's business associates shared the post proudly. The internet loved it, but the more the news spread, the more trouble brewed beneath the surface. By the end of the week, Daniel's father publicly thanked the charity for recognizing their family contribution. But when he called Daniel to discuss the details, Daniel had no idea what he was talking about. The confusion turned into outrage. His father accused him of making reckless donations without permission. Investors began to question his decisions, and within days, the donation became a scandal. Proof of his supposed irresponsibility during a financial crisis. Mia watched it all unfold from her living room, sipping tea with a steady hand. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She only felt a quiet sense of balance returning. For the first time in years, Daniel was the one struggling to defend himself. But even as the satisfaction lingered, a strange emptiness crept in. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. He had noticed her distance these past few days. He didn't ask many questions, but she saw the concern in his eyes. When he kissed her goodnight, she could feel his quiet confusion, the unspoken question of why she wasn't truly happy. Mia told herself it was temporary, that once this was over, once she saw Daniel face the same humiliation she once endured, she'd finally be free. Yet, as she scrolled through social media, seeing the chaos she had caused, she began to wonder if revenge really felt like freedom. That night, she received another message. "You think this makes you better than me?" It was Daniel again. Her hands shook slightly, but she didn't reply. Instead, she stared at the message until the screen went dark. The next morning, her phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Clara. "It's done," her lawyer said. The charity released a statement confirming the donation. They thanked Daniel publicly. He can't undo it now. Mia thanked her and hung up, feeling both lighter and heavier at once. She had won. She had taken the one thing Daniel used to humiliate her and turned it into his downfall. It was poetic, clean, perfect. Yet her heart felt strangely still. She walked outside, the wind brushing against her face. The world looked the same, but she didn't feel the joy she expected. Ethan found her standing by the porch. "You've been somewhere else lately," he said softly. "Is something wrong?" Mia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "No, I just finally finished something I started a long time ago." Ethan smiled, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Then it's time to rest. Whatever it was, let it go." She nodded, though her mind whispered otherwise, because deep down she knew it wasn't over yet. She had wounded Daniel, yes, but in doing so, she had also reopened something inside herself, something darker, something that whispered that peace might never come as long as she carried the need to win. That night, as she looked at her reflection again, she saw a different woman, not the broken one Daniel left behind, but not entirely free either. Revenge had given her power, but it also reminded her of how much space he still occupied in her heart. Mia turned off the light and whispered into the silence, "Maybe this is enough." But part of her knew it wasn't. Not yet. Mia sat in the quiet living room, her phone buzzing on the table. The message notification blinked again, Daniel's name flashing on the screen. She had ignored him for days, but he wouldn't stop. This time curiosity got the better of her. She opened the message and read, "You think this makes us even? You've ruined me." His words carried the same arrogance, the same bitterness she remembered, but underneath there was fear. That made her pause. For years he had spoken to her like she was powerless. Now he sounded desperate. She could almost hear the edge in his voice. She typed back slowly, "You ruined me first." Then, after a moment, she hit send. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the phone down. A strange calm washed over her, a calm that didn't feel peaceful, but heavy. The revenge had worked. Daniel's business had fallen into trouble. His name had been dragged through gossip and speculation. The same society that once pitied her now whispered about him. She had turned his weapon back on him and watched his confidence crumble. But as she sat there, surrounded by silence, she wondered why her heart still felt hollow. That evening, Ethan came home early. He smiled, kissed her cheek, and said he had made reservations for dinner. "You've been working too hard lately," he said gently. "You need a break," she nodded, forcing a smile. Ethan had been patient, loving, and everything she had once prayed for. But lately he had felt distant, not because of him, but because of her. She had built walls without realizing it, shutting him out while she chased her private battle. As she got ready, she stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked calm, but behind her eyes, something was restless. At dinner, Ethan held her hand. "I know you've been through a lot," he said softly. "But whatever's bothering you, you can tell me." She wanted to tell him everything, about Daniel, the car, the revenge. But how could she? He'd see the parts of her she didn't want anyone to see. The anger, the pride, the darkness she'd let grow inside her. So she smiled instead. "It's all fine now." "It's over," Ethan nodded, trusting her again. But as they drove home, her phone buzzed once more. This time Daniel was calling. She silenced it quickly, her pulse racing. Ethan didn't notice, but the sound echoed in her mind long after. That night, when Ethan fell asleep, Mia slipped out of bed and went to the balcony. The air was cold, and the city lights flickered below. She called Daniel back. He answered instantly. "So you finally have time to talk," he said, his tone sharp. "You shouldn't have messaged me," she replied quietly. "You shouldn't have dragged me through the mud," he snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mia didn't flinch. "You humiliated me. You left me at my weakest and walked away like I was nothing. You destroyed my peace. I just gave you a taste of what that feels like." Daniel laughed bitterly. "You think you're better now? You think revenge fixes everything?" She hesitated. "No, but it made us even." There was silence on the line. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel said, softer this time, "You were the only one I ever really cared about. I made a mistake. I was young, stupid, pressured by my parents, but you didn't need to destroy me to prove a point." His words caught her off guard. "You cared about me?" she repeated. "You left me in tears a week before our wedding, Daniel. You let your parents insult me. You said I wasn't enough." "I know," he interrupted, his voice breaking slightly. "And I hate myself for it. But what you did, it's worse." Mia's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to throw his cruelty back at him. But something in his voice sounded too real. "You don't get to play the victim," she said finally. "You brought this on yourself," he sighed. "Maybe, but you'll regret this one day. Revenge doesn't heal anything, Mia. It just leaves scars on both sides." Before she could reply, he hung up. She stared at her phone, her reflection faintly visible on the screen. His words lingered like smoke in her mind. Over the next few days, Mia tried to push the conversation out of her thoughts, but she couldn't. Everywhere she went, she heard echoes of his voice. The media storm eventually quieted, but inside her the noise only grew louder. She should have felt free, but instead she felt trapped, tied to Daniel again through the very thing meant to end their story. Ethan noticed. "You've been somewhere else again," he said one morning, pouring coffee. "I don't know where your mind goes, but it's not here." Mia looked at him, guilt settling in her chest. She wanted to tell him the truth, but she couldn't bear the thought of him seeing her differently. "I just need time," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Take all the time you need. Just don't lose yourself in the past." His words hit harder than he knew. That night, Mia sat on the floor of her study, surrounded by old boxes. She found an envelope buried under years of dust. Letters, photos, fragments of her old life with Daniel. She opened one. It was a note he'd written the night he proposed. "I promise to protect you from everything, even myself." She let out a shaky laugh and tore it in half. But as the paper fell apart, she realized she wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. The next morning, she decided to end it once and for all. She wrote Daniel a final message. "You were right. Revenge doesn't heal. I'm done. Don't contact me again." Then she deleted his number and blocked him. She even deleted the news articles she had saved. It was time to stop feeding the fire. For the first time in months, she felt lighter. She began to focus on Ethan again, on her new life. They took small trips, spent evenings cooking together, laughed about silly things. Slowly, the shadow of Daniel started to fade. But sometimes when the house grew quiet, Mia caught herself thinking, not about revenge or pain, but about how easily hate can blur into obsession. Weeks later, she received a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a simple note, "Thank you. Losing everything made me start over too." It wasn't signed, but she knew who it was from. She sat down and stared at the words for a long time. For the first time, she didn't feel anger or satisfaction, only peace. That night, she went out to the balcony again. The sky was clear, the air calm. Ethan joined her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "You seem lighter," he said. "I am," she whispered, "because I finally let it go." Ethan smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then that's the best gift you could ever give yourself." Mia looked at the horizon, her mind quiet for the first time in years. She realized revenge hadn't freed her. Forgiveness had. Not forgiveness for Daniel's sake, but for her own. Holding on to pain had kept her trapped in the same story. Letting go meant writing a new one. Months later, Mia volunteered at the women's charity she had donated the car to. The director told her how much the donation had helped them, how many lives it had changed. Standing there, watching the women laugh and rebuild their lives, Mia understood what true strength looked like. It wasn't revenge. It was rising above what tried to break you. When she left the center, she saw a familiar silver car parked outside, the same one that had once belonged to her. It was now part of a driving program teaching women independence. She smiled softly, realizing how far she'd come. That car had started as a symbol of love, then turned into a weapon of revenge, and finally, it had become something good, a tool of healing. As she walked away, she whispered to herself, "You can't rewrite the past, but you can choose how it ends." And for the first time, she truly believed it, because revenge had once felt powerful. But forgiveness made her unstoppable.